Every few months, it seems like something crazy happens in the world of sports, and sometimes it involves an NBA player. Here are some of the best NBA players who have been jailed. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a video. So what happens when these 250-pound, 7-foot-tall dudes lose control? Let's take a look at Joakim Noah first. If someone put a gun to your head and told you that you had to pick one NBA player you knew had been arrested for marijuana possession to live, your first thought would be, what an odd scenario this is, but your second thought would be Joakim Noah, right? You'd be correct. Noah, the man buns inventor, exudes a relaxed personality. Whether or not that is correct, he was arrested for marijuana possession and public intoxication in Gainesville, Florida in 2008. Officers approached him after noticing him drinking alcohol and having marijuana in his pocket. He was facing up to 6 months in prison for possession at the time, which is absurd given marijuana's growing acceptance and legality. Now let's lighten the mood a little bit and tell you all about everyone's favorite J.R. Smith. After winning his first NBA championship last season, J.R. Smith had a few emotional outbursts. Before going shirtless for the next week, the Cleveland Cavaliers guard delivered a tearful speech about his parents' support. Given his difficulties before joining the Cavaliers, he was clearly exploiting the situation. Smith has been arrested 4 times in his career, 3 times with the Denver Nuggets and once with the New York Knicks. He narrowly avoided vehicular manslaughter charges in 2007 after blowing through a stop sign, causing the passenger, a friend, to die after being ejected from the vehicle. He was charged with assault, property destruction, and disturbing the peace 5 months later. Smith stayed out of trouble for the next 4 years until he was arrested in Miami Beach for driving an unlicensed scooter. The 4th charge against him was the failure to appear in court. Such an amazing opportunity like playing in the NBA, it comes with the responsibility, but time and time again players abused it, and there is no better example of this than Andray Blatche. It's hard to imagine Andray Blatche, who played his entire NBA career for the Washington Wizards and Brooklyn Nets, having just one arrest. However, Blatche had many legal issues during his first 3 seasons in the league. To get to the point where he is now with the Wizards, he struggled through his first 3 years with the team and was charged with driving without a license and soliciting prostitution, among other offenses. One would think that being an NBA star and making millions of dollars would be enough to draw the attention of attractive women, so the charge that he was soliciting prostitution seems odd. On the other hand, in 2007, Blatche attempted to engage in sexual relations with an undercover female police officer. When we talk about going to jail for stupid reasons, we can't forget about Iverson. 11-time All-Star and inductee into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Allen Iverson was one of the most exciting players of his generation, both on and off the court. He gave us memorable plays, memorable rants, and newsworthy issues that are still discussed today outside of basketball. He grew up in a low-income family where he was frequently without running water, heat, or electricity. Because of his involvement in sports, he stayed out of trouble. He was arrested twice in 5 years while playing for the Philadelphia 76ers. Iverson was arrested for marijuana possession and unlawful firearm possession after being pulled over for speeding in 1997. In 2002, the point guard was charged with assault after allegedly throwing his wife out of the house and threatening 2 men the next day in an acquaintance's apartment. The craziest arrest of an NBA player occurred in 2004. Yes, we're talking about Payton. Payton has won an NBA championship at some point in his career. The Hall of Famer is best known for his 13 seasons with the Seattle Supersonics. But he chased a championship with the Miami Heat in his final 2 seasons, eventually winning one in 2006. On the other hand, Payton was arrested twice during his NBA career. While playing for the Milwaukee Bucks in 2003, a fight broke out outside a Toronto strip club, and Payton and teammates Sam Cassell and Jason Caffey were charged with assault causing bodily harm. Payton was arrested for DUI the following year before the 2004-2005 season, after an officer observed him backing out of an on-ramp on a San Diego freeway. Just like that, another rich NBA player was laid off easily. 3-year prison sentence, that's crazy, but started a worldwide controversy. That's a crime we are going to talk about. Unlike Payton, Jason Kidd was arrested twice before winning a championship. In 1995, as a 21-year-old with the Dallas Mavericks, the point guard was charged with assault. 6 years later, with the Phoenix Suns, he was arrested for domestic abuse. Jumana Kidd, Kidd's wife, reported him to police after she claimed he punched her in the mouth during an argument about feeding their toddler. When officers arrived, she had a cut on her mouth and a swollen lip. In the 2012 offseason, the 10-time All-Star signed with the Knicks after a few too many drinks and attempting to drive his 2010 Cadillac Escalade after the celebrations. Kidd's car collided with a telephone pole, but he was only slightly injured. It was a metaphor for his brief stint with the New York Knicks. Arenas' arrest was such a big deal that a lot of people still remember it. Gilbert Arenas' NBA career was effectively over when he was arrested in 2010 for allegedly possessing an unlicensed pistol. When you think about it, this doesn't seem like a particularly heinous crime, but the circumstances surrounding it certainly did. Because of a gambling debt, the 3-time All-Star threatened teammate Javaris Crittenton with an unloaded pistol in the Washington Wizards locker room. Even though Arenas was a fantastic basketball player for the Wizards, the incident that resulted in his suspension for the remainder of the 2009-2010 season is what most people remember about him. He'd already been arrested twice before the infamous incident, once in 2003 for illegal firearm possession and again in 2004 for disobeying police. After a teammate, Avi Story, was arrested for jaywalking and refusing to leave the street in 2006, Arenas stepped in. "There is no way I'm leaving. Basketball was a sport I used to play in my previous life." When discussing NBA players who have been arrested, it's impossible to forget about Matt Barnes. Unsurprisingly, Matt Barnes has encountered difficulties off the court, even though he is not included on this list due to his bizarre Derek Fisher incident. Despite the fact that Fisher was charged with romancing Barnes' estranged wife, Barnes was not arrested for allegedly driving 95 miles to beat the out of Fisher. Barnes had already been charged with domestic violence in 2010 after police responded to a 911 call and discovered him inside his home. 2 years later, he was arrested again on suspicion of driving with a suspended license and posing a danger to law enforcement. Despite the minor nature of his mugshot, it remains one of the most memorable NBA player arrests of all time. Sometimes players commit crimes they never recover from, like this next player. Greg Oden is known as one of the worst draft picks in history because of many injuries that kept him out of the game for 3 years. For the Miami Heat in 2013 to 2014, he tried to come back and lasted only 23 games before he quit. He was arrested and charged with battery just a few months after he called it quits because he was accused of punching his ex-girlfriend in the face. On August 7, 2014, police were called to his home. They found a woman on the sofa with a swollen and bloody face. A plea deal called for him to be on probation for 909 days and get help for domestic violence and alcoholism for 26 weeks. Let's move to one of the most memorable NBA player arrests of all time, Dante Cunningham. He has played for the Portland Trail Blazers, Charlotte Hornets, Memphis Grizzlies, New Orleans Pelicans, and Minnesota Timberwolves, among other teams. Dante Cunningham was a former second-round pick of the Portland Trail Blazers. The list of teams for which he has played, on the other hand, is not nearly as impressive as his resume in this regard. Cunningham was first arrested in April 2011 for speeding, reckless driving, and possession of a small amount of marijuana. A loaded BB gun was also found, making for a wild night on the streets. In 2014, while playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he was arrested for assaulting and strangling his girlfriend for 20 seconds. A few days later, he was arrested for violating a protection order by sending threatening texts to the woman who was the subject of the order. He hasn't gotten into any trouble since moving to New Orleans 3 years ago, which is unusual given his lengthy stay. As always, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content, please leave a like and subscribe. Please let me know if I made any mistakes or missed anything that you felt should have been included. If you have any suggestions for future videos, such as interesting stories or topics like this, please leave them in the comment section down below.